Warning: please do not use or derive concepts from this video to try answering questions and incorporating it into the steps of a diagnostic approach to a patient. So today we'll be talking about Kakuzu from Naruto. So things to keep in mind when watching this video. Chakra can be controlled, which can control parts of the body to maintain homeostasis of the body. And notice that Zabuza can also control the strings in order to maintain his body, which has undergone many physiologic changes. So some background knowledge on Zabuza is he's an accountant of the Akatsuki and his partner is Hidan. He has 5 hearts and can replace these hearts with healthy hearts to extend his life. Each one of his hearts has a different chakra element. Kakuzu has some very strong techniques. His body is made up of string that can expand across a long distance by his chakra. Another technique is that he is able to shield his body from many attacks if he is able to. So his abilities are such as follows. Kakuzu has strong steel threads running through his body, as mentioned previously. He can use them to throw people and dig into their organs to capture their heart, which is how he extends his life. He can also harden his body at will, and the hearts can separate from his body to form bipedal creatures that can attack his opponents with various elemental techniques. So this implies that he can separate his chakra into those beings as well, and he can control he has such good chakra control that he can find like tune the finest details. Kakuzu is also biologically immortal and can only be killed if all 5 of his hearts are destroyed. So this would be his version of complete heart failure. So he is a 91-year-old man. You do this thing called an atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk score. And this is like the calculation of your 10-year risk of having a cardiovascular problem such as a heart attack or a stroke. The reason you do it from 20 to 79 is you don't do it before 20 because most likely you're going to live 10 years, and you don't do it after 79 because you're most likely going to die in those next 10 years, and it's going to be a really high score. So you would treat them as you would if like there's no point because they're probably most likely immortality is going to occur. So before we continue, I'd like to discuss 2 kinds of circuits in the body. So there's a parallel circuit as seen on here in the diagram with the head, arms, and legs. And there's also a series circuit. So a series circuit is like there's one line, there'll be a resistor here, resistance here, and resistance here. Let's say that this resistance is 5 and like the other resistance are as 5 as well. It'll equal 15. If you add another resistance, it will equal to 20. So the more resistors you add in a series circuit, the higher the resistance will. This is kind of contraindicatory to a parallel circuit, which, as you can see from this math, the more resistors you add, the lower the total resistance becomes. As you can see, if you add these numbers higher and higher, then you have to divide by 1 at the end. It'll be much lower the higher the resistance is. So that's what the body is mainly made up of, parallel circuits. So let's continue on now. So due to him having 5 hearts, you can assume, since it's in a parallel circuit, that he has very low resistance. That means the blood flow he has a really high blood flow throughout the heart. So some things to watch out for would be like hypertension, which can lead to aortic dissection, which is basically like a tearing of the aorta due to the high pressure. This is usually the highest risk factor for this is aortic dissection. Another common thing that may happen is high output cardiac failure, which is where the cardiac output is high but the heart is failing. This is usually also common in anemia because like the blood, there's very few like red blood cells in the way of the flow, so this causes like the flow to be really fast, so there's high cardiac output but the heart is failing because it has to pump a lot of fluid. Coarctations are usually like bends in the artery, some may describe it, so like this and like this. Red here would be the coarctation. How you would treat with this would be like you would have to resect this portion and then you would have to connect these 2 portions. And since he's 91 years old, there's a high chance that he has aortic stenosis. This is due to calcification, unless somehow he has mechanisms in his body that may have prevented this, which I will discuss later. So one theory on how he would avoid those previous complications is that the strings he uses either compresses and decompresses vessels so they don't get too tight or too loose. An alternative theory would be like all his blood vessels are made up of strong, malleable, and compliant steel material. And this is another theory that's a viable theory, and another theory would be both of these theories kind of put together. There may be a his blood vessel might be made of steels, and at the same time, since it's hard to like move the steel from the the other strings that he has like attached to his muscles fibers, as these steel rods may force the bending to occur. So some X-ray findings, you may see like multiple hearts on X-ray findings, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll keep it like this as a normal person. So an enlarged heart you can see here. Normally, how you tell an enlarged heart on an X-ray is you see like the total distance from the midline where you can see the spine right here to like the outside portion right here. If it's further than the halfway mark right here, usually we see the heart right here, right now. So this means it's an enlarged heart. Another thing you can see is a coarctation, as we discussed before. There's a funny sign for this. It's called 3 sign. So management would be to just control his hypertension and just continue looking at him. He's 91 years old. He's made it pretty far in life. So you can give him beta blockers, ACE and ARBs, and hydrochlorothiazides just to control, like these three are just mainly to control blood pressure. You don't need to screen him for cancer because he's already 91 years old. You would wait for him to start having symptoms. Another thing I would suggest is maybe get like an echocardiogram every 3 months.